My name is Doreen Tang. It's good to see you again. And today my family and I are very excited to host a little segment called Creation Care. Now, what comes to mind when I say creation care? To us, it's quite simple. We talk about environmental issues, for instance, environmental pollution, which is a bad thing. We talk about wildlife habitat loss, which is a sad thing. And we talk about climate change, which unfortunately affects all of us. So these are very big, serious, and daunting issues that we don't like to think about. So let me start by sharing some pictures with you and talking through our journey. And this was us in 2017. Here I'm married to Fred, and we have 2 children, Maya and Hannah. So, like other parents, Fred and I were busy. We celebrated birthdays and school and life events. We very much enjoyed the conveniences of modern-day parenting, like disposable diapers and buying food home when we didn't want to cook. We were what I consider a regular family, doing typical things. One thing that we were not doing, though, is we were not thinking too deeply about our impact on the environment. Terms like global warming and environmental pollution. Yes, they were familiar terms to me, and the science for it was quite clear. So, for those of you who know me, you will know that I have a soft spot for animals. I'm going to show you an example of our local wildlife here in Malaysia. If you can see her, this is a domestic short-haired cat, and we took her in. But do you know that the global population of all animals worldwide, so that includes mammals, that includes reptiles, amphibians, insects, fish, your favorite. The global population of all of these has decreased by 68% since 1970. 68%, it's 2/3. So for those of us, 1970 until today, it's like 50 years ago. 50 years ago, we had so much more animals, so many more animals in terms of population in the world than we do today. And that's just population of animals. We haven't even talked about global warming or environmental pollution yet. Those are also very sad stories.
Hi, I'm Fred, Doreen's husband. We know that one of the main causes for environmental problems is excessive garbage pollution. We as a family, as a household, have been trying to reduce the amount of garbage we have. And one of the things that we do is segregating our trash. So we segregate materials like plastics, paper, and aluminum so that they can be processed and ultimately get reused. We know that by recycling, it is a way for us to play our part in saving the environment. And it feels really good.
Unfortunately, we were also aware of the low rates of plastic recycling in Malaysia. As you can see, in 2018, Malaysia only recycled about 12% of all the plastic that came in for recycling. This is mostly due to limited recycling capacities. So what this means is if we segregate 10 plastic bottles to be recycled each week, only 1 bottle would actually be recycled.
So a friend shared with me that only 3 of the 7 categories of plastics can be recycled in Malaysia. I did not know that. So yes, while plastic bottles and disposable food containers fall into recyclable categories, meaning they can be recycled in Malaysia, unfortunately, plastic bags and styrofoam cups or styrofoam plates cannot be recycled in Malaysia.
Instead, they come here to enormous landfills, or they float down rivers and into oceans and accumulate into what is known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. This is a horrible thing in the Pacific Ocean and is roughly 5 times the size of East and West Malaysia. What you see in the picture is just the tip of an iceberg. Most of the garbage over decades that have made their way through rivers and ocean currents have sunk below the surface of the water. So can you imagine what's underneath?
So we started reading labels on things that we purchase, and we started to look for things like recyclable materials, and that's one with the recyclable sign, or biodegradable things, which I don't have an example here, but that's the logo that would come on these products. And biodegradable means that it will eventually decompose over time, and that's what we want.
But they will also outlive us in oceans or landfills. So unfortunately, our mountain of diapers are still floating around somewhere, adding to the pollution. Maybe also floating here are our disposable mineral water bottles, shampoo, and soap bottles.
And the more I read about all these issues, right, about environmental pollution of the air, the water, right, the seas around us, soil even, right, about wildlife habitat loss, I started to pray, started to think about these things more deeply and talk to God about this. Not only are these things very depressing issues in and of themselves, each one of them is, but God impressed also upon my heart that He has created the earth. He is the creator of the earth. And I truly do believe that He created not only us, He created everything that we see around us and all the creatures that we coexist with. And in His beautiful creation, why was I not willing to step up when all of this was under threat? Or why are we not willing to step up when all of this is under threat?
This is Jane Goodall, one of the world's leading animal conservationists. She once said, "Here we are, the most clever species to have lived. So how is it we can destroy the only planet we have?"
Yeah, so these kinds of quotes really haunt me. And it haunted me enough that I decided I would embark on a personal journey to understand my own impact on the environment and how I could consume less, or my family could consume less, and be part of the solution, or start to be part of the solution. And when I say these things, I don't want to scare you off, because they can be really simple things. And I think I have to admit that in our case, most of the time they are really simple things. So I'm just going to show you some of the simple things, right? So for those of you who have children, right, every year, end of year, the children come back with a stack of school books, right? And part of those school books are always exercise books. So I started going through each child's exercise book in every subject, including music, and tearing out all the unused sheets of paper. Even if they are just like one side used and sort of can be used again, I'll tear them out. And I realized by doing this, I would never need to buy, this is just a fraction of what I have now at home. I would never need to buy writing paper again in my life. And another thing that we did, okay, so we eat a lot of nuts, and lockdown, it's difficult to go where we usually went to buy our nuts in bulk, so we have to buy them in these plastic containers and replace them often, which is bad. But, and again, for those of you who have children, you'll know why they're so colorful. This is slime now. These are now our slime containers. And we make do. We figured that since we have to buy these anyway, we will try to contribute less of these to the landfills around. The third thing, again, I realized that one thing that was always on my grocery list every week, or at least every 2 weeks, was laundry detergent, right? So as a family, we go through quite a lot of laundry detergent. So I decided, okay, we're going to go for a brand whereby we get a lot of mileage out of it, right? So I found, and I covered this because I don't want to seem like I'm advertising particular brands. I found this brand that just lasts longer, a lot longer than the ones that I had been using previously. So yes, although the packaging is made of paper, but because I get so much more mileage out of it, and maybe it lasts for like a month and a half before I have to replace it, which for me is really good. So just simple things like that. And another thing that Fred and I did or do is at dinner table, with the children, we speak about world issues, and a lot of time environmental issues come up as one of the subjects, right? And it is heartening to see, it's encouraging for me to see that the children have a much more mature understanding of these issues than I did at their age. And I have to also give credit to their teachers at school, because their teachers have influenced them a great deal over the years, and their teachers make it a point to use practical examples and demonstrate practical examples, and to make it cool, to make it very cool to be part of the solution for the environment.
As you know, carbon footprint is the amount of greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane that's generated by our activities and which negatively impacts the environment. As a family, we started to pay closer attention to ways that we could reduce our carbon footprint. I started doing research and quickly found that besides lowering water and electricity consumption or using less plastic and reducing garbage, our food choices could actually be a very effective way to lower our carbon footprint. We are Malaysians after all, and we love to eat. You may have seen this famous chart of what our food intake should be made up of. It always made me laugh and feel very guilty because we were completely the opposite of this. We were heavy meat eaters and very light on veggies. Every meal had meat. Must have enough protein, eat more meat, is the common refrain I heard growing up. I used to preach this too. But what was surprising to us was finding out how so much meat production is actually harming the environment. In this chart from Columbia University, you'll see that greenhouse gas emissions, which contribute negatively to climate change, are much higher from meat sources of food than from plant sources. Meats like beef and lamb, and unfortunately cheese, have a bigger negative impact on the environment than vegetables, fruits, and nuts.
It also takes so much more water to produce meat sources of food, like beef or lamb, compared to plant sources of food, like vegetables or fruit. So you can eat a lot of durians without feeling guilty.
So we started looking for plant-based protein sources to reduce our reliance on meat. The children still had their daily meat intake, but Doreen and I went through extended periods of being plant-based, and here is what we found. So in our plant-based journey, we did a lot of research firstly, read up on a lot of stuff about how do we, on the merits of plant-based and how do we go about it. So we actually started eating a lot of nuts, a lot of veggies, a lot of fruits, all types of fruits. We started going to the supermarket and really hunting out healthier alternatives to what we've been used to. We even had plant-based meat alternatives like these. There are lots of these choices in the supermarket, which gives you quite a substantial amount of protein without having to resort to meat. We started to cut out things like chicken, lamb, beef, and we did this over many weeks, right? So we would take it a step at a time, where we would cut out meat for 1 day of the week, moving to 2 days, to 5 days, and eventually, for me, I actually cut out meat entirely and started eating more tofu and more plant-based protein. Doreen didn't go all the way, but she did cut out meat for about 5 days in a week. Actually went plant-based for about 6 months, and it felt really good. If you're wondering what plant-based is, it's very similar to a vegetarian diet. We decided to go on the plant-based diet primarily because of health reasons, and also so that we could do our part for the environment. When we were on plant-based during those months, we felt that we had tremendous amounts of energy. I could play tennis for hours without getting tired, and I was outlasting a lot of my opponents, which was fantastic. It felt really incredible. And Doreen noted that her joints actually felt less stiff. Of course, it's very challenging to be on a plant-based diet, especially when we meet up with friends or we go to a restaurant. But these are things that we had to learn to get over during those periods. Of course, there are very good questions that we get commonly asked, like how do you avoid all those delicious Malaysian foods which are very often animal-based, or how do you resist all the delicious steaks or chicken that you see, fried chicken, when you go out? Well, these are all very good questions, and when MCO is over and we meet at church, do feel free to come up. We would love to share further on that. One common question we got was, what do you eat every meal besides salad and fruit? Right. Here are some pictures of the meals we had. Believe it or not, these are all plant-based, and I thought they were really delicious. There are plenty more things that in the interest of time we can't show. But after the first month, we became more creative and appreciative of the food choices available. It felt like we had relied heavily on meat all our lives. But once that crutch was removed and we got used to it, we were free to experiment and discover. Today, due to the ongoing MCO and the difficulties of going to the supermarket, Doreen and I are currently not on the plant-based diet. However, we still try to emphasize eating a lot of vegetables, much more than what we used to, and also reducing our focus on animal-based products and meats. So meat is no longer our central part of our meals, and we think that this is the right thing to do, and it also helps the environment. So this is our way of helping the environment, also improving our health, but in a sustainable way for the longer term.
So I'd like to conclude by saying thank you to PJEFC's leadership for picking today's topic, creation care. This is such an amazing topic. It's such a wonderful topic and so apt too. The things that are related to this topic, like environmental protection and habitat loss and climate change, these things have been on my mind for many years. And I know these are really serious issues, but I'd like to end by encouraging everyone to take a step back and think about all of us, our impact today. We've referenced the terms carbon footprint. So what your carbon footprint might be or might look like. And everybody's carbon footprint could be a little bit different. And where you can cut down wherever possible to reduce that carbon footprint. And I'd also like to say, many of you listening to me today have actually done more, way more than me and my family have done. And I don't mean that, all of you are plant-based or vegetarian. But I know that many of you are very careful and you have reduced and reused wherever possible. The 3 R's, reduce, reuse, and recycle. Yeah, so I know, and the reason I know is because I've heard many times over the years, in many different situations, these refrains, let's not buy this, because we have something at home that we can sort of use for that. Let's not buy so much of that because it will go to waste. Or, goodness, we have this in the fridge, let's eat it up, right? So all these things are really good, and I'm so glad that these things are, I hope, not just part of our dialogue and not just part of our conversation, but I hope that they are becoming part of our culture as PJEFCians, our culture as Malaysians, and as global citizens of the world, right? So I'd like to end by encouraging all of you to take a good look and see where you can reduce and reuse wherever possible. And if you haven't done that, now's the time to start. And start small if you want to. Because, I always think, even if you make a commitment to reduce one disposable plastic container a week, right? That maybe you get from buying lunch at work, right? Even if you do one a week and commit to that, it's one less piece of plastic in the ocean or in landfills. So, yes, you can do it. We can do it together. Thank you. God bless.